Why clearing mental clutter is so important. You don't have to be a hoarder to collect a lot of clutter. You don't even need to own much stuff to have an environment full of distracting, unneeded, unnecessary items getting in your way. They may not be physically impeding you in any way, but they still are affecting you. That's because your five senses are constantly doing what they do. Why else would you have them if they weren't always listening, looking, tasting, touching, and smelling your surroundings? They do this to alert you to potentially negative experiences. You hear your alarm go off, and this means work when you would rather keep sleeping. You taste onions in a casserole that looked so good, but those onions make it oh so bad. You feel a few raindrops on your skin, letting you know you'd better seek shelter. They also let you know of possibly positive situations. You overhear your boss saying he'll be leaving early today, and that's a beautiful thing. You smell freshly baked bread. You see that there are only 5 more minutes before you clock out from work and start a week-long vacation. There seems to be a lot of work displeasure in these examples, doesn't there? By the way, if you want to know how negatively physical and non-physical clutter can affect you, consider this. You have more than 5 senses that you're aware of. Many neuroscientists, philosophers, psychologists, and others believe humans have dozens of senses that process our world and help us interact with it. For instance, there's equilibrioception. This is a human sense that helps keep you balanced. It's quietly working all the time to keep you from falling over. There's also proprioception. This sense lets you unconsciously understand which parts of your body are located where. Clutter distracts your senses whether you have 5, 15, or 25. When there are things in your environment you don't need for the task at hand, your senses are distracted. You only have so much mental energy devoted to your conscious activities. It's believed that only about 5% of all cognitive activity deals with your conscious world. This means you run out of mental focus quickly when your surroundings are cluttered. Then on top of that is the long list of harmful emotions caused by mental clutter. Mental clutter includes future worry, obsession over the past, stress, fear, anxiety, and other negative perceptions. All of this clutter in your mind wrecks your ability to focus. It destroys your productivity and efficiency. When this happens, you may suffer from self-doubt, frustration, self-resentment, and other negative feelings because you don't get a lot done. What's the answer? How do you enjoy less stress and anxiety, more productivity, and a clearer, more focused mind? The answer is simple. Clear out the mental and physical clutter. Clean your environment of physical clutter. Stop dropping things wherever you happen to be and put them in their rightful place. Quit obsessing over the past and worrying so much about the future. Forgive people rather than constantly thinking about what they did to you. Limit the amount of stress you voluntarily place yourself in, at work and in your personal life. Whenever you sense some negative emotions, observe them. Where are they coming from? What's causing them? If your thoughts aren't necessary and they are messing with your mind, get rid of them. Unresolved mental clutter can be as dangerous as physical clutter that proposes a trip and fall possibility. Or a fire hazard. Get busy removing unnecessary thoughts and obsessions from your life. Clear out sensory clutter as well, and you will enjoy less stress and anxiety, and more mental clarity and focus. Take charge of your mental clutter and stop worrying about the things you can't control. Brain-based clutter is stressful. It's generated by having too much going on in your mind. You're trying to deal with too many things at once. That's difficult even on your best day. Focusing in this modern world with its many distractions is tough. We often make it tougher than it needs to be. This happens when we refuse to say no to our friends. They're always asking favors and we're always saying yes. That's a perfect stress-building recipe because we seldom tend to our own needs and responsibilities. We're too busy trying to please others. Other needless distractions include things we did in our past. It might be true that you could have made better choices. That's the case with all of us. But obsessing over your past might be one of the most fruitless activities you can undertake. You have absolutely no control over what has already happened, so constantly thinking about it is just cluttering up your brain unnecessarily. We also create mental mess that doesn't need to be there when we spend our valuable time thinking about things we have no control over. This keeps you from living your best life. It needlessly ramps up your levels of worry and stress. Honestly appraise what you may be able to influence. Maybe you believe you have a lot of influence over a friend of yours. Regardless of any proof you might think you have that backs up your belief, you are dead wrong. You have absolutely no control over anyone but yourself. If you're like most people, you find it difficult enough to control your own actions and thoughts. While you may believe you have an ability to influence others to take certain actions, what happens if they one day decide to quit listening to you? Be honest with yourself. In most situations, all you can control is your behaviors, your emotions, and your attitude. To discover if you're unnecessarily cluttering up your mind, make a list of those things in your life you're constantly thinking about that you do and don't have control over. Act on what you can control. Talk about what you can't. We often try to control things outside of our realm of influence because we feel frustrated otherwise. It makes no sense to bang your head up against a brick wall if your actions are fruitless. Actually, it doesn't make much sense to bang your head up against a brick wall for any reason. You know what we mean. If you consistently think about, worry over, and act upon things you can't control, you're going to be frustrated, stressed out, and constantly filling your mind with mental clutter. So make that list. Once you've made a list of things you can control, that's where your thoughts and efforts need to be directed. If you can't control something in your life, but you'd like it to change, talk about it. Bring it up to the significant people in your life that might help you change that situation. Then, whether or not you get the change you're looking for, move on. You can't control what you can't control. Just tell yourself that over and over. This can keep you from needlessly wasting your time and mental energy when they can be directed to where they have a chance to make a positive impact. It limits the amount of information your mind has to deal with, and this means less mental clutter. Turn worrying into problem solving to remove mental clutter. Clutter of the mind is and isn't like physical or visual clutter. It's similar to clutter you can see in that it can be very distracting. The difference is you can't reach out your hand and remove a piece of mental clutter like you can the physical things that are unnecessarily littering your space. Mental clutter is insidious because you may not realize how much energy is being devoted to it. Clutter of the mind includes those random thoughts that seem to appear all day long, no matter what you're doing. Healthybrains.org tells us that the average person processes about 70,000 thoughts every day. That's a lot of thinking. Of course, the vast majority of these happen without your permission. Dr. Fred Luskin of Stanford University says that of the many thousands of thoughts each person has, as many as 90% of them are repetitive. So you're needlessly thinking thousands of thoughts you have no control over, and most of them have been around before. That's a ton of mental clutter. One way to deal with much of it is to stop worrying and start solving problems. Worrying just leads to more negative thoughts. Why are most of your thoughts negative? The way the human brain developed means there's a negativity bias you have to deal with. For some reason, negative thoughts and experiences are given more attention than positive ones. One of the most negative aspects of this process is worry. We worry about things all of the time, don't we? It seems worrying is a favorite human pastime. The problem with this is that worrying never gets you to a point of resolution. That's why you should turn worrying into problem solving. The next time your ceaseless thinking machine cranks out another worrisome thought, address it. Instead of worrying, look at this thought as a problem. How can you solve it? How can you make the best of this situation? If all you can see is negativity, look for the silver lining in the cloud. Imagine that the following thought pops into your head. You've been having some issues with a friend. You've said some things and she said some things, and now you aren't sure if the two of you are in a good place in your relationship. If you have enough spare time, you can waste hours, if not days of your life, worrying and imagining all sorts of terrible scenarios. Or you can create a game plan that addresses the situation. Instead of worrying endlessly, solve the problem. If you can't call or see your friend right away, schedule a meeting. Talk it out. Most of the time, the things we worry about and imagine are going to be so terrible, never end up being anywhere near as miserable as we thought they'd be. To declutter your mind, stop worrying so much. When worry is prompted by your constantly negative thoughts, look at it as a problem that can be solved. Then solve it. This is a simple way to keep mental clutter from building up in your brain. You might also find a lot more positivity in your life. Now you're solving problems when in the past you simply worried over them and let them fester. Schedule your worries for a clutter-free mind. Odds are you deal with mental clutter every day. Even the most mentally placid and focused individual engages in clutter-gathering activities. Do you ever ruminate needlessly over some experience in your past or some unknown situation in your future? Obsess over interactions you had with someone, good or bad? Worry and what if yourself crazy about something that's out of your control? Hold tightly to negative experiences, emotions, and feelings? Constantly surround yourself with external distractions and a continual barrage of sensory input? These create mental clutter. They waste your brain-based energy and your valuable time. These and other mentally cluttering activities lead to disorganization and distractions, confusion and a lack of mental control, poor productivity, and can even cause physical fatigue. The more mental clutter you experience, the more negative emotions and feelings you have to deal with. Stop worrying all of the time and schedule it instead. You wouldn't be human if you didn't worry about different aspects of your life. You want to be your best and create the best life experience. That means from time to time, you're going to fret, worry, and wonder over any number of topics. Your worry comes about because of fears, expectations, concern over potential outcomes, and for other reasons. Instead of engaging these worries when they pop up, schedule a time each day to deal with what's going on in your mind. As soon as something worrisome enters your mind, you tell yourself you'll deal with it at a previously scheduled time. Then consciously get your mind involved with something else. Do anything that requires your conscious devotion. This will push your worry to a back burner of your mental stove where it can be dealt with later. Stop spinning the wheels of your mental machinery. Your worries don't have to take over your mind and start cluttering up your mental storage space. Deal with them by appointment, sometime in your schedule where you can give them your undivided attention. Schedule this worry work at the same time each day, and each week if you can. When you perform the same activity at the same time, eventually your mind will notice. It begins to expect you to handle your worries at a designated time. You'll discover you start to worry less because your mind is used to you ignoring these thoughts when they're off schedule. This can limit the number of worrisome thoughts you have to deal with throughout your day. The twice-a-day ritual that declutters your mind helps you sleep better and relieves stress and boosts mental focus. Scott Bay is a clinical psychologist that understands just how clutter can wreck your mental and physical health. He tells us that the visual clutter, anything that falls within your line of sight but isn't necessary, cranks up your production of cortisol. That means more stress and anxiety. If you hadn't had enough depression recently, just add more mental and physical clutter to your life. Clutter negatively affects your self-esteem level, even if you don't consciously believe it's that big of a problem. Mental clutter, as well as the physical variety, kills your ability to focus and to be productive, and can lead to sleep loss. Physical clutter in your environment can lead to mental clutter. Your senses are constantly trying to deal with everything they detect in your messy, disorganized space. This fogs up your brain and gets it working overtime. When you remove visual, physical, and mental clutter from your life, you gain better control of not only your mental abilities. You also give yourself a boost of self-esteem and feel good about what you've accomplished. The downside of a cluttered mind. Before we discuss how you can do some spring cleaning in your cranium, let's get a little negative. Sometimes understanding the downside of a situation can motivate you to take action. Here are a few of the unfortunate symptoms of a cluttered mind. You constantly focus on the negative and have difficulty seeing things in a positive light. You worry about things you have no control over. It's difficult focusing your attention and having clarity of thought. You're easily and frequently distracted. Your brain never shuts down and is always processing information from multiple topics and lists. A cluttered mind can lead to multiple sleep problems. It's not uncommon to feel physically drained and tired, as well as mentally confused and not very productive. When your mind is cluttered with unnecessary stuff, a lot of energy is required to deal with it. This can make you feel run down and fatigued. You don't feel like doing anything or dealing with anything. Don't worry, there's a simple solution you can use twice a day to sleep better and relieve the stress your mental clutter is causing. You'll find it easier to focus, and you'll be more productive as well. Here's what you need to do. 1. Write it down when you wake up. 2. Write it down when you go to bed. What is the it that you should be writing down? Your thoughts, your feelings, anything that's going on in your head. In the morning, write out a game plan for the day. Prioritize important things and keep everything else off of your list. At night, read over what you wrote that morning. Then unload your mind. Back up the mental dump truck and get it all out. If random thoughts bothered you during the day and they're still on your mind, let them stand up and be recognized. Writing out your thoughts is such a powerful way to clear your mind. When you do this regularly in the morning and at night, you'll find you sleep better and you're more productive during the day. This won't stop your ceaseless inner chatter. What it does is give you control over it while ensuring a lot of mental clutter doesn't take up full-time residency in your mind.